All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 11th, 2023 meeting of the Scio Township Planning Commission. And with that, I would like to actually ask Commissioner Walsh if or submit that Commissioner Walsh act as secretary until we have our elections. Could I have a motion to that effect?
I would make that motion.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Hyde, support by Commissioner Yapple. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. So Acting Secretary Walsh, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Gable,
Yeah, present.
Commissioner Moore,
Present.
Commissioner Culbertson,
Present.
Commissioner Rothney,
Present.
Commissioner Welch, present, Commissioner Hyde.
Present.
Commissioner Reiser is not here at the moment.
All right. Right, we have no presentations this evening, and I just want to welcome our new commissioners. And since this is the first meeting, I thought it would be great if that we would, we don't have adoption of the agenda on here, do we?
Yep.
So yeah, so I would like to say that we add to the agenda introductions so people can meet the new planning commission members, and as well as so we can meet the old planning commission members as well. Will someone please add to the agenda introductions after roll call?
I would move that.
Right. Is there a support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Walsh. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move to introductions and we'll start with Commissioner Moore.
My name is Kim Moore. I've been on the planning commission for 3 years.
Right, and do you want to say a little bit about your background? Just a little bit, not whole resume.
I'm a retired attorney, and I've lived in the township since 2007, so 16 years.
Great.
I guess I could say that I also represent Scio Township on the WAVE board. I'm the president of the board right now. And I also participate in the Western Washtenaw Regional Advisory Group, which is a membership of all the townships in Dexter City and Chelsea City, to talk about issues that are relevant to all of us and mostly focus on housing and transportation.
Okay, great. Commissioner Yapel.
All right, my name is Ryan Gable. I've lived in Scio Township officially since April. Been through the rezoning, conditional use rezoning and site plan approval process. Starting in 2021 into 2022, we built a building at the end of Jackson, or at Baker Road where it dead ends into Jackson. I also sit on the DDA board, so I've been to quite a few of these meetings. Both as an involved participant and as interested member of the public. So happy to be here.
I'm Bob Hyde. I have been in the township since 2007. Before that, I was in Ann Arbor, Western Side. So I always looked at Scio as being out in the wilderness. It's changed a little bit, but anyway. I'm a retired engineer. I'm also on the Huron River Watershed Council board for Scio Townships.
Great. Laura.
Well, I was gonna give an introduction later, but I'm Laura Krebs. I am the Township Planning Consultant. I work for Carlisle Wortman Associates. Carlisle Wortman has been Scio's planning consultant for 30 plus years. I have been with Carlisle Wortman for 16 years, and I've been working with Scio Township for about 13 years, whether you believe that or not. And I'm really excited to work with all of you, and especially the new members. Welcome.
Thank you.
here.
Yeah. Jump that way.
I'm Andrea Rothney. My background is in education, not just teaching high school, but also a lot of adult education and workforce development projects. And then also I have a pretty long background in real estate, including a lot of development projects. And my master's work was in public administration. And I've been here in Scio Township for about 2.5 years now, and looking forward to becoming more involved.
Great. Welcome. Sure will.
Bob Walsh. 2007 was apparently a good year to move to Scio because that's when we moved as well. I am retired after 27 years, variety of positions in the automotive industry. Been active in Scio. I got my arm twisted to help with the Saturday recycling that happened once a month. Then joined the ZBA in 2018. I think I did an election inspector in 2020, road advisor in 2021. And I think I've been on the planning commission now for about 6 minutes.
That's a real up-to-date resume. Yeah, and I'm Jan Culbertson, and I've lived in Scio Township since 1989. But really didn't get active with the township until 2018 when I joined the planning commission, and I've been consistently a part of that. And I helped start the Environmental Sustainability Task Force and served on the ZBA for 3 or 4 years.
You were on it when I joined.
Yeah, I think since 2018, when I joined the planning commission, and that's sort of been my legacy. Well, welcome everyone, and I really look forward to working together and appreciate your service and all that we have ahead of us. All right. Does anyone have any communications or correspondence for anyone that they want to? Okay,
Make a suggestion.
yes, sure.
Should we officially adopt?
Yeah, we should officially adopt, sorry, the amended agenda. Do you want to, Secretary Walsh, will you move the amended
I will
agenda?
move that we adopt the amended agenda.
Thank you. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Hyde, and welcome Commissioner Reiser.
Hello, coming from another meeting, my
Yes.
apologies.
No, that's fine. Commissioner Reiser, just for the record, arrived at 7:10. We're just adopting the amended agenda. Anyone opposed or all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Commissioner Reiser, we just kind of gave introductions, and I'm sure you can watch.
Yeah,
the
I will, I
recording, but if
pledge to
you-
watch what I've missed thus far. I've heard good things about these 3 people. I obviously voted in support of them at our last meeting. So welcome, look forward to working with you folks. It's nice to see you again, Bob, and Hyde. Tim too.
And we gave a little bit of a bio, just a quick bio as a way of introducing the existing commissioners to the new ones.
Okay, so you put me on the spot, so
Yes.
introduce yourself. My name is John Reiser. I live in the Ravines subdivision. I am the BOT rep, where I was appointed about a year ago to serve out about a 2-year term. I work for the city of Ann Arbor as an assistant city attorney. I came to the city of Ann Arbor from 24 years in county prosecution, working for the Washington County and Oakland County a few years before that. So I know a lot of folks in the county, folks in the city. I am also on the LPC committee and the PPP committees and active in the state bar. But I really like being a member of this committee. I like that we don't always get along. We don't always see eye things on development, and we have different plans, but different ideas for, what should come in or not, but we get along with each other. I respect the opinions of the people on this board, and I heard good things about you. Looking forward to working with all of you. I think we've got a great consultant in Laura Krebs as Carlisle Wortman. So looking forward to having a good 2024. I yield the balance of the time that I already used up.
Okay, thank you and welcome. All right, any communications and correspondence, on your end, other than we did get your report?
Yeah, just my report, no, speaks for itself.
All right, we have no presentations this evening, so we'll move to public comment. And this is the time we have now, just because Jan reviewed the bylaws, been forwarding them to our new members, and lo and behold, guess what? We had 2 public comments in our bylaws, so we now have 2 public comments. There'll be one at the beginning and then one after our reports. So you have a choice if you want to have a public comment. So we have someone in before we
Yes, do
go ahead.
that. It's my understanding that the bylaws allow for a public comment to happen. Or, I'm sorry, that a public comment happen unless otherwise decided by. the
By
commission,
resolution.
By resolution. So when you and I have communicated about this, email, and were you able to find the resolution that changed
There
that?
is no record of a resolution by the planning commission to change that.
So it just got dropped off, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think agendas changed when they went to the
Peak system.
Yeah.
peak system.
I think something happened during that. I don't think it was, I don't think it was purposeful. I think it just got mixed.
So in any event, we reinstated it. So right now is public comment and people wishing to address the planning commission on matters, any matter, because we do not have a public hearing this evening, are welcome to come forward and sign in. We'll listen to folks who are here in Township Hall first, and then move to any public who are wishing to comment online. Such oral presentations shall be limited to 3 minutes, except as a representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes. So with that, we'll open public comment.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this by the microphone so I can hear you a little better.
Hello there, sir.
Hello,
I didn't realize that was you.
yeah, it's me.
Failing sight.
I'm still hanging in there.
All
I'm
right.
Dave Spicer, 525 Baker Road. I'm in the process, my neighbor and I, Eugene Cat, in the process of, trying to get our zoning changed from R1 to C3. I've already got an application filled out. I've talked to Laura before in the office over there. But I sort of would like to know from the board, because there's something about having it, needing to have a sewer or not, to be able to change it to C3. And I just, before I spend $1,400 on something, I wanna see if there's a possibility that it could be changed. That's why, that was my only thing I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer.
You're welcome.
And Dave, when you say it, are you talking it being the zoning or it being the location of sewer in Scio Township in your general area? What's the it you're talking about?
I thought before, whatever, when Joe Maynard was here and trying to get the zoning changed for Dan Johnson on that property there, whatever, that one of the concerns was not having sewer. So my question is am I gonna have the same problem? Not having sewer?
Yeah, and we'll direct our planning consultant to look into that. And I believe there was some mention of that in I think there was the intent in the master plan or something like that.
Yeah, so the actual rezoning of the property, it would be in line with the master plan. The development of the property and the use of whether it's septic or sewer would depend on the development. Well, there is no sewer there, so all of the development that's currently in that section of Baker Road is utilized by septic systems, right? The there's McDonald's, there's
Right.
fast food, there's others. They all use septic.
So in other words, the development Heritage Woods, they created a development and they had to provide sewage because there wasn't.
But I mean, they're a different zoning than I would be though.
It didn't have to do with the zoning because everybody's got to have sewage, but when there isn't city sewage.
Yeah, have to have it on site.
Provided.
Yeah,
So, but
okay.
But I'll ask you a question, Laura. They're not necessarily linked. I mean, you don't need to have municipal sewer before rezoning can occur. Is that
No.
correct? It might be a factor or something to think about, but there's no causal
No, no,
relationship.
and the use of the water usage, any utility usage is dependent upon the use that eventually develops there. And so when we look at the rezoning, we're gonna talk about this in my presentation, we're looking at the master plan and whether it
Right.
aligns.
Okay, well, I don't wanna, I know you got a lot going on tonight, so I don't wanna keep you too long here. Thank you very much for your comment. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
We have no one else in Township Hall. Do we have anyone online?
We have two hands raised, Rob Pattinson, I'm gonna allow you to talk.
Hi, Rob.
Hiya, Rob Pattinson, Scio Township. In support of Dave Spicer, 2 or 3 or 4 months ago, there was the Dan Johnson sliver of property that he was intending to buy from Ruth somebody. And I remember it was Commissioner Moore who caught that moment where Doug Luan, in his recommendation, said nothing about, in order for, it was either C2 or C3 zoning to happen, that it had to have access to sewer and water. And Doug Luan didn't say anything about that. And it was Commissioner Moore who actually caught that in the zoning. So I think that's what David Spicer is talking about, is that his property, he's trying to get it rezoned C something. And is it dependent on having water and sewer in order to make that zoning happen? And that was just a recent conversation on the Planning Commission. Further, what I intended to say was welcome to the new commissioners. Ryan Yapel, it's very good to have you on the board as a recent person who's been through the entire planning process. I think that's an extremely good perspective to have on the Planning Commission. And to our new commissioners, I have to reassure all of you that the only troublemaker on this commission is Trustee Reiser. And Bob raises his hand. And but Trustee Reiser will be the only one causing trouble. I can assure you of that. And then Laura Krebs, could you please swing the camera over so that the entire board can be seen? We can't see Commissioners Reiser or our new one, Andrea.
I have tried in every capacity I know how and it will not swing over, so I apologize
Okay,
for
well,
my lack of technical knowledge.
you just need a bigger hammer.
And to follow up on that, it appears that there are going to be some technology changes a little bit with maybe a cart coming down here, some additional training, the ability for someone to do that remotely, as well as possibly looking for someone to support the Planning Commission from a more of an IT standpoint. So there are some things in the works.
Good. Thank you all. Good luck tonight. Have a good meeting.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
I also have Pam Boyd, I'm gonna allow her to talk.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, an active and Scio resident and Scio community newsletter. I echo Rob, not sure about the Reiser comment, but welcome back to the older people and to the new people. Andrea, you will notice over time that there are a small group of residents who attend all of these meetings, and we're learning kind of with you. We enjoy learning something new and being a part of this township as resident advocates. So welcome to this group and go at it. Thank you very much.
So I'd just like to clear something up about the C2, C3. And the language is that the district is used only in those areas of the township which are served by public water and sanitary sewer facilities. That's what.
That's from the intent portion of the, is it?
That's from the general commercial district C2, and it's also that language in C3. So it's
Under
not
the
the
intent.
intent, it's,
It's in the language.
it says the district is to be used only in those areas of the township which are served by public water and sanitary sewer.
So we will need to.
You could maybe get the zoning, but, or maybe not, because the folks that give the zoning understand these requirements, but that may be problematic.
We'll get a letter, we'll get a memo of determination for you. I think that can.
$1,400, but if I can't get changed.
And I would say that comparing apples and oranges, like what happened in one project to another is not always good because they're not always oranges and oranges. So for instance, one differentiation of the Heritage Woods project was that it was a PUD. And that's a whole nother beast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for digging that out. All right, Yes.
We have one more hand raised, Jonathan Greenberg.
yes, Jonathan.
Hey y'all, just wanted to share a welcome along with the other commenters to all the new members of the committee. And I'll actually say that I think Rob understated the amount of problems that John Reiser is going to cause. Just kidding, guys. Hey, have a good meeting tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. All
Move to adjourn.
right. All those in favor? No. All right. All right, then, anyone else?
There's no one else.
Okay, seeing no one else, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Walsh, support by Commissioner Hyde. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Right, moving on. We have no public hearings this evening. And we have no unfinished business, so we move on to new business. And I asked Laura to put together a new commissioner orientation. So I think we'll all benefit from that. And let's see, Laura, can I share my screen? Does that should be okay?
Welcome aboard. Thanks for volunteering.
Thanks for coming by.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
It's not,
Promoting you to panel. You have-
there we go. Then I join.
Then you'll get a button.
There we go. Alrighty.
Want to swap seats or
Sure.
I'll go stand down there and
Laura, do you want me to
Oh, you know,
Okay, I can do that.
it's up to you and you or Jean.
I don't mind, Jean. Doesn't matter.
Well, I need to use her computer for my.
so she's gonna use my computer.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I already did the introduction part, so I guess there's no need for that. You guys know who I am. I really enjoy working with Scio Township and the Planning Commission, so I'm really excited for 2024. I know there's a lot that we're gonna be working on, and so I'm really happy that we're all here tonight. And this is just, there's a lot of information the Planning Commission does. The expert planning commissioners will be able to tell you that just going through this pretty brief presentation is gonna pack a lot of information in. So it's really meant to just give you an overview of kind of all the things we're gonna start to talk about. And we'll just get into it and you'll see what I mean. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the roles and responsibilities of the Township Board, the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, just so you know, you're all kind of intertwined. We're gonna talk about the master plan, the policy document that we base all our zoning decisions on. We're gonna talk about the zoning ordinance, our laws. We're gonna talk a little bit about the planning processes that the Planning Commission reviews for the Township Board. We're gonna talk a little bit about ethics and transparency, just there are some specific rules and just procedures that the Planning Commission abides by. And then at the end, I have a bunch of training and resources that Jan wanted me to make available to you. And of course, there's more if there's a topic that you're interested in that we can find for you too, so. So land use decisions don't operate in a vacuum. There's the Township Board, the Planning Commission, the Board of Appeals, and then administrative and support staff. And we all kind of have our own roles and responsibilities. The planning commission, as you probably are aware, is a recommending body to the township board, right? We don't have any authority over any of our own decisions. We make recommendations to the board. That's for rezonings, which includes plan unit developments, which is a rezoning of property and a site plan, site plans, conditional uses, all of those things. The Board of Appeals is the judiciary component of local government, right? They do their own thing that we will see that they review variances, they review interpretations of the ordinance and of the zoning administrator, and they can provide an appeal from an administrative zoning decision.
And that's separate from the ZBA?
That is the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, yep. And so then we also have a bunch of administrative and support staff that help us too, right? We have agendas to get out, we have public notices that they help us. They support us in all sorts of different ways too. So there's just there's always a lot going on in the planning department. We get our authority from two statutory legislative statutes, the Planning Enabling Act, the Public Act 33 of 2008, and the Zoning Enabling Act, Public Act 110 of 2006. The Planning Enabling Act provides the authority to form a planning commission and also talks about how we master plan. The Zoning Enabling Act forms the Zoning Board of Appeals and gives us rules for applying zoning law and amendment of those laws and appeal. So why do we plan? For a lot of reasons, but mainly we want to anticipate change, create predictability. We want to make sure that we're using our resources wisely, that we're preserving land, preserving water, wetlands. We want to create a vision for the future, a cohesive plan, so that all of the components of development work together, not against each other. And we want to protect the environment and our quality of life. So the first thing we need to think about is a master plan. The master plan is the policy document that we adopt, that all our zoning decisions are based upon, right? It encompasses the character of the community, the desires and the needs of the residents, and it catalogs all of our resources and assets. Where is the prime farmland? Where do we have wetlands? Where are steep slopes? All sorts of things. They're documented in the master plan. All master plans are different, but most master plans have demographics. They will have existing land use information, what is currently makes up the land use of the township, right? What percentage of it is commercial versus farmland, et cetera. It also has goals and objectives, how we move forward with our zoning decisions. It also has an implementation and then future land use, where we talk about, so the zoning map is completely different from the future land use map, right? The future land use is our goal, our plan for the future, whereas the zoning is what we base today's decisions on. Okay. So we have to have the master plan document policy before we can have a zoning ordinance, before we can make that regulatory document. Because like I said before, this is what every planner says a million times. You can't, your zoning ordinance has to coincide with your master plan. They have to work together. And if you find that you're making zoning decisions that aren't in line with your master plan, then you really need to look back at your master plan and make some changes. The Planning Enabling Act requires that a master plan be reviewed every 5 years. That doesn't mean it has to be changed, but it has to be opened up by the Planning Commission and looked at. Now, you can make an amendment to the master plan at any time, but you have to review it every 5 years. Again, the zoning ordinance that was under PA 110 of 2006, we regulate the development of the land. It allows us to develop one or more zoning districts, and the zoning ordinance can change based on law, court decisions, AG opinions, all sorts of things. I mean, there are always things happening in the world that we have to reflect on our ordinance and make sure that we're in line with. A big one, in the recent past has been signs due to court, due to court decisions or AG opinions. So we constantly have to continue to keep up with the current, case law and opinions to ensure that we're not, our ordinance is up to date and we're not, lacking in some area that we could be challenged. We zone for all sorts of reasons. The number one, instead it's at the bottom, the number one reason is protection of public health, safety and welfare. But we also want to ensure land use compatibility, that we're not creating nuisances with incompatible uses next to each other. We want to protect natural resources. And of course, property values are pretty important too. The Planning Commission has some non-discretionary approvals and discretionary approvals. The non-discretionary approvals are zoning administration and site plan. And what zoning administration means is there are certain applications that I, as the acting zoning administrator, approve without you seeing them. For example, someone wants to build a deck on their residential house. Or I see a lot of generators after the last year's winter storm, right? So those are mainly some of them are commercial applications, but most of them are residential applications for decks or an addition or something like that. Those are non-discretionary. If they meet the ordinance standards, they're approved. And that's the same with the site plan. If it's a permitted use that comes to us with a site plan, and they meet all of the criteria of the ordinance. They meet the setbacks, the parking requirements, the landscaping requirements, the lighting. If it meets all of the standards of the zoning ordinance, it shall be approved. There is no discretion. It is required to be approved. When we talk about site plan review, we're talking about all the things I kind of just said, but we want to make sure the site arrangement is logical, that there's room for fire maneuverability, site circulation, drainage, if there's any natural areas that are being protected, buffering, all of the things. So it's not just, we're not just looking at the building or the entryway, we're looking at the whole site and how it is cohesively designed. And we look at it in a comprehensive way when we look at site plan. We're making sure all the standards of the ordinance are met, that it represents a reasonable site arrangement. For site plans, there is a effectiveness deadline. I think it's a year. So the site plan, once it's approved by the township board, they have a year to get a building permit, to continue on through their process, have a pre-con, get a building permit. If that time lapse, they might have to come back. But there is a provision for extensions. And so they would come and say, hey, site does, our detail engineering took too long, or COVID happened, or some other crazy thing.
So what are some of the reasons why, does that happen often that they don't get a building permit within a year? And is it financing or?
Sometimes, there's financing, COVID, things just weren't happening. Sometimes it's bidding out work, or they couldn't get anybody to bid on the job. There's all sorts of reasons. And I've never known anyone that asked for a reasonable extension not to be granted in my time. So those are the non-discretionary approvals. Discretionary approvals, the two most common that we're going to deal with are conditional use and planned unit developments. So that means that the township board can impose conditions that it deems necessary to achieve the objectives and standards of the zoning ordinance and master plan. And, most of you have dealt with all of these. So conditional use is conditional use is a use that's permitted in a zoning district, but you have to meet special standards, or it needs, for example, let's just use drive-throughs because they're a special land use in C3. They're allowed there, but you have to be able to determine that they're not going to increase traffic, or they're not going to cause circulation problems, that the property suits that use, right? There are a number of other factors you can look at with regard to the use. The hot topic, I should have probably just used that.
No, it's
No.
fine.
No, you should know, and especially if it's, might come down our way. Training us on the issues that are coming down the pike, whether it's drive-throughs or whether it's BODs, is
Right.
important.
So plan unit development's a little different. It's a rezoning of property to a specific site plan. And a plan unit development rezoning allows for the flexibility in the land development when eligibility requirements can be demonstrated. So what that really means is there are specific eligibility standards in the ordinance that if they're met, it can be rezoned to PUD. And that could mean, a certain land size, parcel size. It could be, a particular open space percentage, all sorts of things for eligibility. And so, and as part of that, some flexibility can be allowed for setbacks or lot coverage or other things when they can demonstrate that there's a benefit to providing this flexible land development. This is a two-phase process, so there's preliminary and final plan unit development. So you'll see it once as a preliminary, it goes to the board. They will approve the preliminary or kick it back to you, and then you'll see the final again. So you'll see that twice.
And Laura, sorry for interrupting, but, and that's different from just a non-discretionary site plan.
Sure. So yeah, site plan will just come one time. We don't have a preliminary. The only time you'll see a site plan twice is through the conditional use process. If they're requesting a conditional use on a vacant piece of property, they would have to provide a site plan as part of that conditional use application so that we can get a general idea of how the site will be laid out. But you don't act on the site plan, you're acting on the conditional use, and the site plan will come back for approval after the use is approved. And that's written into the ordinance. That's how.
So you're saying for like a PUD, the site plan comes in at the final.
She asked a question about the conditional use. So for
Actually,
conditional
I know,
use,
I'm just going back to that.
Yeah.
We only see the site plan at
once.
the final.
Yes, there's only a final.
But it's
On a
before.
PUD?
No, just a regular site plan.
Like when my project went through, we had to provide a site plan at the initial conditional use
Yes.
meeting. But there were minor alterations that of course occurred after feedback at the final
And then,
site plan approval meeting.
yeah, so if it's just a straight site plan, if it's a permitted use and they are submitting a site plan, it only comes here one time, typically. You only see it once, but a plan unit development, you're gonna see twice. And if it's a conditional use, you might see that site plan twice, because you'll see it in the beginning and then you'll see it again for site plan.
Yeah, and there is a step between the site plan that comes to the planning commission and then
I'm gonna
the
get
site
there.
plan goes to the PUD. Yes.
Hang on.
I'm ahead.
I was just going through them all first, so try not to confuse.
We like it at slow pace.
So a couple other things that we're probably gonna work on pretty soon, actually. First is text amendments. So rezonings are either text amendments or they're map amendments. And they're really they're both rezonings. But for text amendments, they can be initiated by an individual, a legislative, the township board, or the planning commission. And the commission is going to be working on a number of potential ordinance updates, and you have a list in front of you, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Typically, amendments are to implement the master plan, to clarify existing language, because it's great to write an ordinance, but then once you try to apply it to a project, you might find, oh, we're really missing something, or that doesn't sound right. Or add new language. We missed something in the original, or something has occurred that makes us think, oh, well, we need an additional provision or something like that. Text amendments start here. They're adopted by the township board. So even once we get through all our text amendments, the board is gonna have their shot. And they might say they like it, or they might say start over.
Not our vision.
Right, right. So the second part, rezonings, is map amendments. Again, they can be a property owner, the township board, or the planning commission. They'll start here, just like the text amendments. We want to make sure that they're consistent with the master plan, they're compatible with the surrounding area, any impact they might have on public services, and that the change is justified.
Can you give me an example of what a map-amendment is?
Sure, what Mr. Spicer was just requesting from his property is currently zoned,
I see.
I don't know,
The label on the
R1.
map.
R1.
He said, he mentioned R1 and C3.
R1, and he's requesting, he may request a rezoning.
So the map would change by the zoning shown on it.
Yes,
I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
there's also this thing called conditional rezoning, which it happens pretty infrequently. We haven't had very many in Scio Township. But it's a rezoning of property that the applicant voluntarily provides specific conditions to. So those conditions are not negotiated. They are conditions brought to the planning commission and the township board by the applicant. And so that could be a site plan. It could be that the use will only be drive-through use. I mean, if, you know, they want it to be C3, but it will only be drive-through, something like that. But, you know,
Didn't we have an example of that with one of the outlots of Menards kind of behind it? They said, we want to go commercial, but we're not gonna do this.
Yes.
We're only gonna do a storage unit or something.
yeah, and I
like that.
think, I think it didn't.
I think, yeah, it didn't.
But yes.
Didn't get approval, but that was an example.
Yes, yep.
Yep.
Yep, it's probably the last one we had. But again, that was probably the first one we'd had in a couple of years. So what Jan was trying to talk about before, there is a typical process for development review, and usually that starts here with me at an informal meeting with the planner. If you don't know, I have office hours Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Tuesday all day and Thursday afternoons, where people can call for an appointment either by phone, by Zoom, or in person and meet with me about any zoning or planning question they might have. And I hear all sorts of questions, and that's great. I mean, it's great. It's good to know what people are thinking. I enjoy helping residents with their questions. Sometimes I'm very helpful, and sometimes I call myself the bad news lady, but that's what it is. After you get through an informal meeting with a planner, let's say it's a development of some kind, they would ask for a pre-application or concept meeting. At that pre-application meeting, the township engineer will be there, I will be there, a representative from the planning commission will be there. I think Joyce and Will and potentially Mariah will be there, depending on whether it's a PUD or not. And basically, it's just the developer providing their concept, and we go over what challenges they might have with a particular site. We also talk about whatever planning process would be most suitable. Is it a conditional use with a site plan? Is it a rezoning, et cetera? And then we walk them through that process. After that pre-application meeting, they're ready for submittal to the township for a formal review. Typically, what that means is, let's say it's a site plan, for example, they'll submit, OHM and myself, we have 2 weeks to do a first review. If we have a lot of comments, which we usually do, we ask them to resubmit. And then, and we have a staff meeting. If there are a lot of items that we feel need to be addressed prior to coming to planning commission, we will sit down at a staff meeting with them, with utilities, fire, OHM and myself, and go over all of our items that need to be addressed, and talk them out with the applicant. After they address all of those issues, or we feel like we're to a point where there's only a few items remaining that can be handled either in detail engineering or some other way, then it would come to the planning commission. If a public hearing notice is required, that's for PUD, CUP or rezonings, we make sure all of that is handled. There are specific requirements that laws that we are required to follow for public hearing notices, that they have to be published in a newspaper, or they have to be posted, they have to be distributed by mail for people within a certain radius, and we have to make sure all that's completed. After that's done, we can put it on a planning commission agenda, and you will make the consideration and make a recommendation to the township board. Since you are only a recommending body, anything that you do here, you are making a recommendation to the township board, and that can be a recommendation of approval, a recommendation of approval with conditions, a recommendation of denial, or you can also postpone items and ask for additional information, and then they would come back again, and we would do that until you're comfortable moving it forward to the township board. There are some, and this is in the bylaws, conflict of interest, just, really typical. If you know somebody, if it's your neighbor, I mean, just be cognizant of the applicant and of even the perception of conflict of interest, even if you really don't have a conflict of interest, but someone knows that you have coffee with this person every other week, and it's out there in the public, you just might want to think about that. Very rarely do we have a conflict of interest, I think, here, but you should be cognizant of it. Site visits, you should, and I encourage you to do any site visit. You have to be really careful to know make sure we have permission with the front office. And if anybody asks, you should disclose who you are and what you're doing there. And then if, of course, openly, if you're comfortable, you could also say, hey, I visited the site and this is what I saw and such. Jan wanted me to talk about responding to emails. If we all respond to emails, we are a quorum, we are a body, and so we have to be really careful. We can provide information to all of you, but please do not reply all and start having a conversation. It'd be really bad.
Because we're deliberating in violation of the open meetings act,
Yes.
potentially.
Yes.
I never respond to email.
Yep, don't respond. You can respond directly to
Well,
Ann or me or,
Right, I mean,
yeah.
we're supposed to do business in
Openly.
here, right?
Yep.
And I just feel like it's not, this is where I give my opinion,
Sure.
not over email.
Well, if at any time you can contact me and ask a question. If you're struggling with something or you need additional clarification about something, and if you're more comfortable asking me, and then we can bring it up in the public forum also. There's nothing secretive about your conversation with me. So, but if you want to have that conversation first, I'm happy to do that. And
Sometimes there's information in emails that are not true, that completely misstate the ordinance. Not just refrained, so it's not my job to set everybody straight, so.
Mhm.
If it should come to our
Sure.
meeting, I don't have a problem addressing it, but I don't, and I kind of, so. Okay. But I did want to clarify, add to something you were talking
Okay.
about. Because the issue about going to the site plan, sometimes people they want to explain to you their position. They don't like this road being put in, or they want this development put in, or whatever, and we can't discuss the pending application with folks, so. I've never had that happen to me, but that's my understanding. What
Yeah.
we're required to do
It's-
is to politely beg out of that kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
conversation.
you're allowed to go, this ex parte communication where it could be construed that, yeah, someone's guiding you
Lobbying.
I mean, that's really, inappropriate. But I think it is important to drive by the site, look at it on an aerial photograph. I mean, there are other ways, if you're not comfortable even going to the site, to find information out. And if you need help with that, I can help you, Jan can help you.
But do we have to have permission to go to the site?
Yeah, you can't,
You mean permission from, the landowner?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you can't just go on.
When they,
Can't you go,
I thought on a site, application, it says.
It does.
It provides authorization.
I think they check it.
It's a property authorization box, and you're also signing it when you
Yep.
submit it.
Okay, so if
I'm
I
very
see,
familiar.
I see that.
so if I see that, because I have gone to sites without permission, but they were public, so for instance.
like
Oh, yeah,
Driving around Goodrich
yeah,
Theater around the parking lot.
Yep, or like when we had the East Delhi Road
Yep.
issue, I felt like that was, I think it was a private road, but I did to give a better view of that.
It's public road.
no, it still is. Well, it still is. I know what you're talking about, the private road one, yeah.
So look for that box if it's not checked, but it could be an issue.
Yep.
What is that box again, on what form?
You'll see it,
It's on the site plan application form.
and you'll see it as part of the packet when you're reviewing it.
Jan, do you want to talk about training? Is this,
Yeah, sure.
okay,
You can do that. I just, to alert people, one of the, items of, well, one of the requirements to be a planning commissioner is that you do, search out for, an hour of, training a year. We want to keep ourselves abreast of, new, new policies, what's happening out there. There's also, we get a copy of I think it's the Michigan Planning Association magazine. You can read that. MSU offers a citizen planner program, which is a multiple evening activity. And 4 of us did that last year.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, it's a great, and what's nice is you take it with other people from other municipalities, so it's a good kind of conversation. The Michigan Association of Planning has some online as well as in-person courses, and the Michigan Townships Association also are resources. So basically either Christy or Fran can help with members of all of this. So the township can help enroll you in a course, and the township, it's in our budget for people to to be able to pay for that continuing education. We also have, I just want to highlight, and I'm going to put my citizen planner up here. There's some educational materials here that include, a planning commissioner's toolkit and sort of a get started guide and so forth. So you're welcome to
Sign up.
sign out and take a gander at those. They're just I think they're from the Planning Association. And so they give you a kind of a general overview. So those are some easy access stuff. And I don't know, Laura, if you have anything that you want to put in there or
well, what might be good is if there are certain topics that if you could let us know that you're interested in learning about, because there's so much information to provide. So if there's a certain topic that you're most interested in, we can make sure that it's provided via a link or in the materials or something. So
I have a question
Sure.
about materials. Is it possible to get a printed copy of the master plan?
Yep.
And maybe like the Jackson Road Overlay District?
yeah, Fran asked me to do the master plans today. So by your next meeting, we should be able to get those.
All right, good. And are you able to provide a copy of the slides?
Yeah, I'm gonna provide a copy of the sites tomorrow. I'll get it to
Thank
you.
you.
I wasn't finished with.
Will it be added eventually to the packet?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be,
I'll get a whole package.
yeah, well, there's always a packet, but sometimes things get added to the packet, so you can kind of go back and look at previous packets and they'll be supplemented with things that weren't ready for the meeting.
And you mean all on the digital format, right? There's no there's no paper
Right.
packet.
No,
Yeah.
right, there's not a paper packet, it's a digital, I'll show you where it is on my computer.
And then, yeah, the last slide I had was just the resources, and like I said, you're gonna have this all tomorrow. But there's also resources with SEMCOG, Watts, Washtenaw Area is it transit?
Transportation.
Transportation stuff.
Okay, the Huron River Watershed Council, Washtenaw County Water Resources Commission, also Washtenaw County Roads, all sorts of things. So you'll have all these tomorrow and you can check out their websites. There's so much information to look through. And that was all I had. So that's a lot that I crammed in a half an hour.
You did good. Can you go back to that last resource list?
Oh. Yeah, hang on. But you're gonna get this tomorrow. You'll get this tomorrow, Kim. I'll email it to you tomorrow. All this whole presentation. You don't have to. Or your arm.
Yeah, and just to give you a little background, SEMCOG is a Southeast Michigan Council of Governments.
Yeah.
And they're really good for census data, mapping, so exploring some of, and their website's pretty easy to use.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and Watts, they have, John is our official, you're on one of the Watts committees.
That's right.
And Watts is in the process of also updating, as is SEMCOG, their transportation planning. So it's kind of interesting to go in there and see what the goals of the transportation plans are and the maps that are associated with them. Huron River Watershed Council, if you haven't gone on that website, you can find out the latest testing results for all the tributaries in the entire watershed. And you can also find a lot of how you can protect the waters. The Water Resources group also has a lot of stormwater best management practices. Because a lot of the individual, I would say, the lot divisions, that we don't have really a stormwater ordinance for when it's a subdivision. Yes, but that, so a lot of things and things that were before, I don't know, late 80s or something like that, haven't been subject to the stormwater. So there are a lot of good things there that, then the Washington Conservation District, they have farming stuff and they're the ones that sell the rain barrels and they have quite a few of, they have master composter courses, master rain gardener courses. They're a great resource. And then the road commission, they kind of keep an active list of projects. So for instance, there's another roundabout project in Scio, I think is it Miller and Z or something like that, that's scheduled. So you can kind of keep up to date with.
Oh, Miller and Z.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then
It's a tricky little
the
exercise.
county has sort of some resources about affordable housing, and that's been one of the issues that has also come up in discussion. Yeah.
There you go. Now you know everything. That was only half an hour, so you got.
Yeah, so I want to make sure everybody can get on the township website and can see, our agenda, the agenda packet, and then also where it appears, after the meetings are done. So you can go back and look at things too. And see the minutes, yeah. And the recording.
And find the schedule of our next meeting.
Okay, so thank you very much for putting that together. Because it's a good reminder as well as an orientation, so. All right,
Ask a question.
please.
I'm assuming that there is some basic understanding of what's coming in the next few months.
Sure.
Where should we start then with all of this potential education material?
So, well, I was gonna use it, now you're getting into my report under reports, but, Firestone, it has submitted a site plan. So I guess, they just received conditional use approval. And so they've submitted for site plan. So that will probably be your next item for review. So if you wanted to look at the site plan section of the ordinance, landscaping requirements, lighting requirements, those things that we would review as part of the site plan, that's where I would start.
And if I remember right, I think the toolkit there also has kind of a, what to look at when you look, if you're not used to looking at site plans, kind of a guideline of kind of what to look at.
And I'll see if I can't find something to share.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I think there's a link to our ordinances
Yep.
on our website.
Yes.
Correct, and a link to the master plan, yeah. Yeah, and if you're interested in following the, environmental sustainability climate action plan, which, planning commission, recommended approval to the board of trustees, but it kind of, waiting
Under
there.
review.
It's under review. That's a good way to put it. That is also on, if you go to democracy and go to the environmental sustainability task force, there's a link there to that plan. It's also out front. If you ever want to look at like full scale drawings of all the site plans, that little island when you come in the entryway has those. It has a copy of our ordinance. It has a copy of our master plan. It has a copy of the last draft of the SCAP plan. So that's also a place that you can go, because sometimes you just, if you need that big physical place, piece, you can do that. Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. All right, in the packet and also distributed is a list. Laura and I met and we went through kind of what are there are a couple things, several things that, because we updated the master plan, there are some ordinances and so forth that we're reviewing as a part of some of the sustainability pieces that we put in there. And I guess one of the other changes was adding multifamily use to the Jackson Road overlay district. But Laura, do you want to just kind of walk through these?
Sure. So Jan and I, as she said, we met and we talked about all of these, but the top four, well, highest priority are Jackson Road Overlay District, which we already have kind of started. We've had a scope discussion, and that will take first priority in the new year. We've also already started the planned unit development ordinance amendments, but that kind of had to take a halt because there were some Jackson Road implications to that, and so they kind of we need to get the Jackson Road started so that we can continue with the planned unit development, and they're probably gonna have to move simultaneously at some point through the planning commission and then to the board. The third priority was solar. Currently, we don't really have any solar provisions in our ordinance, so that will take precedent. And then parking overall, looking at the parking standards, the maximum versus minimum, and then bike parking, is it enough? Where should it be located? Especially for multifamily developments, and then the EV charging conversation. Those are all the top priorities for the planning commission as far as ordinance amendments. And then there's also a lot of these other things that probably will come into discussion as we go through the JROD and the PUD, but the community wastewater system, landscaping in general, the tree list should be updated, invasives and landmark and all the tree lists. Also, best management practices for stormwater. Our current provisions are basically, we allow additional lot coverage and such for certain BMPs, but all of these BMPs are now required as part of the Washington County Water Resources Standards. So they're not a real benefit, they're not a additional benefit, they're required. We also think we should review the uses in each district, particularly the conversations we continue to have about self-storage, drive-throughs, hotels, and then potential locations for artisan food and beverage. For example, did this body see the chicken? No. There's just opportunity for different, local, meat processing, type of development that we don't really have a use that fits in our ordinance. There's also a lot of talk about affordable housing and different ways that we can provide additional housing, and accessory dwelling units may be something we want to think about or talk about in more depth, in addition to additional affordable housing mechanisms. It's been brought to my attention that people want to have chickens, so we may have to look at a chicken ordinance. And then we just updated the sign ordinance, but the sign height is still 15 feet. I think we need to have a discussion about whether or not that's too tall. But those are all the things that potentially we could talk about in 2024, but it seems pretty, I don't know, we'll get to all those, but we'll try.
So questions, yes.
Well, I don't have any questions. I just kind of wanted to say a couple things about the Jackson Road corridor. So one of the major projects we're about to take on is the Jackson corridor. And there've been lots of conversation in this body, in the planning commission, about the Jackson Road having mixed use, commercial and residential, creating more of a pedestrian environment, maybe having what they call nodes, I've called clusters, along Jackson Road, slowing it down so it's not a motor raceway, having crosswalks, et cetera, bike lanes, et cetera. So there's kind of a loose vision of it. And it became clear that we needed to have the DDA as well as the Board of Trustees, because we're not a policymaking. Well, I guess we are in the sense that we changed the ordinances, but we, you know, the Board of Trustees are big, they have the final say. So we felt that those three entities needed to be a part of a subcommittee. And so we're looking to get 3 or 2 members from each group and create this subcommittee. And so that's kind of in the making right now. And I would just say to folks, I've had about 3 different Board of Trustees ask me what this is all about. And they asked, and we had a joint meeting one time. And most people think it's about changing the J-Rod. And I have to say, well, if there's implications for the J-Rod, it may stay the same, but we're also looking at form code, and I explained a little bit, I know about it to them, and we're looking at, and the things that I just explained to you guys about more pedestrian friendly, bike lanes, commercial, residential, slowing it down.
More downtownish.
Yeah, we never have a downtown like Dexter, because it's a strip, all, 5-6 miles of the strip, so. But it's interesting to me that the Board of Trustees didn't get any of that in any of our conversations, and I've spoken to 3 have reached out to me. And the importance of us all working together to create something, so that there's some cohesion. We're not here to create something different and then just go through the normal, well, this is what we say, and then it gets knocked down and nobody's even participated, or we haven't taken in other folks' concerns in the process. So that's a biggie that we're about to embark on, and it's still in the making. So when I looked at this, Laura, when I looked at these 4 priorities here, it made me think about what's, that whole Jackson Road corridor is not on here. And because that is something that we're we're about to embark on it. So I kind of wanted to say something for the new folks. That's because that's going to be a lot of work. And I think the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, Jan, is that the subcommittee will do a lot of the work. And we kind of agreed to a framework that subcommittee would work in. And then they would bring it back to us, the planning commission, for a final decision before, when anyone else.
Right.
Go ahead, John.
Brian's hands up?
So, quick question, all right, I guess a couple things. One, did we ever get the report from Doug from the Jackson Road meeting that at least most of us, I think, were at?
Oh, with the joint, yeah, where we made up of that list
Yeah,
of comments.
Doug said he was gonna compile it, that was a couple months ago, do you know?
We did get that in the planning
Did we get,
commission.
oh, you guys got
The
it.
planning commission got it, yes, we got
I
that.
can send that.
If
to
you can send it. to
Would it be in a
us.
packet?
It should be.
Yeah.
It's in the, because we had a
What
Jackson
that was.
corridor meeting in October 26th. And I can send you the documents that
Okay.
he sent us in his memo. He had, I think, a memo.
Okay, that'd be
I
awesome,
can send that to everybody, but I don't have folks' emails.
I guess.
Send it to the planning commission.
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
I guess 3 more quick things. One, I've always wanted to ask this, is there like a set value per tree for the tree fund? Like for every tree you destroy, it's $300, $100, $600?
There is no set amount, no.
Okay, interesting.
But there are some dollar
There,
amounts
there,
that I've heard
there's
thrown
a dollar
around.
amount we use, but there, it's not set, like, there's no set amount, right?
Like,
It's-
it's not like a tree that was in 2017 was worth $200 because of inflation, now worth
No,
$300.
no,
Okay, I was just interested, I could never find it in the ordinance, and I thought it's
nope. there's-
be a fun question.
No,
to
it has to do with the
Diameter.
term, the
ask.
term,
Diameter,
no, it's,
height,
what's the older trees are considered
Well,
landmark
that has to do
landmark
with
tree
how
versus,
many- Yeah, but the replacement, yeah, for instance, if, depending on the size of the tree, there are so many replacement trees, and then based on the proposal is how many trees they can't do and what types of trees,
There's no, there's a kind of an amount, but there's no set amount. It's not like, Ryan, you owe us X amount per tree. It's
We-
just,
we
it's
just
just a
try-
negotiation between the board and the
Okay.
developer at some
um,
point for replacement.
sort of along that same line, and I realize we're not ultimately, we're only the recommending body, but the whole community benefit thing for PUDs has been kind of squishy at best, is a good
Yeah.
word to use. It's like, well, if we do this, we have that, who do we give the money to? I realize, and I think sort of the priority list set up makes a lot of sense, but I think that's also important, something between us and the board as much as we have.
Yeah, we did have a,
Recommendations.
just a meeting about that, and there were two things that came up was, who has the authority and how do we get it done in a
Equitable fashion.
yes, and so
and
what
is it
came out of
related
that
to the
meeting was,
development?
yeah, the recommendation that, if it's a PUD, and that's really where the community benefit piece comes in, is Mariah, who's one of the township attorneys, would attend even the pre-application meeting. And that the community benefits would be negotiated and approved as a part of the preliminary PUD. So there isn't this, after you have, what the concept is and and you're going into engineering, that's approved by the Board of Trustees at that point in time, and it's reviewed by, the city attorney and so forth. So that the components of the PUD are represented as the preliminary PUD. So what the final PUD is really the engineering, the detailing of that. And so that seemed to be one, equitable for the developers, but also, it's negotiated earlier in the process. So, you're not saying, okay, it's almost like a pay to play if you've gone through the preliminary approval
But
process
by the
and all of
way,
them.
you need to give us $100,000 for the fire fund.
Part of the problem, as I saw it, was if you go through the preliminary and you're going to the final, as can and has happened in some cases, engineers' probable cost estimates of the project are in some of the documents, you're like, well, they're spending X, so we'll take 10% of X.
No.
And I'm not saying that actually happened, but it doesn't.
The big, that's why we're bringing it up early in the process, because it came along later in the process and it felt like we were like slamming developers with, oh, and by the way, you gotta give us something in return. And so that's why it's in the pre-app meetings now mentioned.
Okay.
But I think correct me if I'm wrong, Jan,
Uh-huh.
there's been, over the 3 years that I've been on the commission, there's been no final policy about community benefits. And we all realized recently that that's not us to make, that's the board. And so we've been waiting, and we're still waiting on the board
And that's.
to come up with a policy on it. And so, but meanwhile, we're the ones dealing with the
Project as it.
the project.
makes it
It's
way-
coming to us first, and you don't slam on community benefits. And I just wanted to say one other thing, when you show up to get your approval at the Board of Trustees. The other thing is for folks, so the PUDs, give us an opportunity, because we're giving something up. Most of these developers want the PUD because they don't have to follow the exact zoning. In return, we get something. We get
Public
open
benefits.
space, public benefit, build on every little piece of area of the property. Or we get a contribution to the fire fund, or we get a contribution to the tree fund, or whatever, or the sewer fund, or whatever. So that's what that's about. And it mostly comes up in this idea of the PUD, planned unit development.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
it's, I don't wanna leave us all over the place, all far afield, but one other thing, especially with like the EV ordinance. Just as an interesting question and, I don't know, I talked to somebody who worked for Rivian the other day and I said, is there some sort of like, I figure by now for gas cars, there's per 1,000 gas cars, you should have this many gas pumps or gas stations or whatever. And he said they are starting to develop some sort of standard for that for EV, because, one of the things I look at is it is good to have EV chargers, but how many do we have? Where do they need to be? That sort of stuff. So,
What kind and where?
and
So
what
what's
kind
the
of way?
standard you're talking about?
He was going to get me a number. I don't have it yet, but
A
they have
number
of how many EV chargers per number of vehicles or per square mile.
Well, it's gonna be
Yeah.
hard because it's still
Yeah.
a growing.
It's today's estimate. It's not
Yeah.
safe for, they have it for traditional vehicles. So I was like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because we do have, other ordinances, we have, and basically we'll have that discussion for sure.
So, my question
Yeah.
to you, Jan, is where is the selection of the committee right now?
Oh, and that's a good point because.
Because again, in these conversations, I've had board of trustees saying to me,
Yeah, we have the representatives from the DDA. And I guess we should probably open it up because you and I were planning on being on it as well as Chris Chang. And so Ryan, you're representing.
I believe I
DDA.
represent the DDA, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're really waiting for the board to put forth who is going to be a part of that. So.
Well, and
We're giving you lots of-
We have to provide that memo to the board.
And
so
they
then
wanted the
that's-
scope, we have the scope and they wanted the cost. And then also, this will go to the board because we budgeted for it in this year, but the board has to approve the actual but expenditure. So Laura will also put together
I was quite,
yes.
in looking at this earlier today, I was quite taken back that the form code was not on this list.
It is
It's the
Jackson
number
Road
one.
overlay,
It's the number one.
the first one.
Yeah, so the
doesn't
Jackson
say-
Road overlay is the zoning overlay for.
I know what the Jackson Road
Road.
overlay is, but it's not a code form, it's a.
Yeah, it is.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't require us to build right on the street.
She's talking about, one's a district and one's a way of building.
Go ahead.
We can move on.
I'll raise my hand. No, I was going to say with respect to the J-Rod, there are two documents that are helpful and they're in prior packets and I can point to them. One is a July 2006 corridor design guide, which was the original. But more importantly, or more recently, is the June 22nd, 2023 form-based mixed use that I think Commissioner Moore is referring to. So that's really good reading. I also think taking a look at chapter 36 in our ordinances, which is our zoning code, you don't have to read the whole thing, but just take a look. Oh, that's where the tree environmental is. Oh, that's where PUDs are. So taking a look at the chapter headings and seeing what's in there, and I found that to be helpful, just poking around our zoning ordinance, knowing, because you'll go to, sometimes it'll come up during a meeting, so having looked at it in a non-stressful situation, knowing what's there helps. But Laura did the heavy lifting on that memo from June of 23, and they're talking about forms-based mixed use, which is like, what do we want to?
Because people were saying to me, why are we changing the J-Rod? And I have to explain, it's not just about the J-Rod. There may be some changes to the J-Rod, but this is what, in the concept of things, this is what we're looking at.
I think we're trying to change how Jackson Road gets developed and used. Where should the buildings go? What should be in the buildings? How high should the buildings go? Should people live there? How do people get between the buildings? All those kind of things, which is in that, and, you know,
Which.
it's broader than the district.
Which would
Right, Kelly.
require, it is, but that's where we have to start. We have to start in the Jackson Road overlay.
Oh, I agree.
But when we're talking to the board, I'm just pointing out, they're not getting that. They're.
So
We haven't started
Yeah,
yet,
meetings.
so they'll get it. I mean, we gotta get this, we gotta get the
Special
scope
meetings.
approved.
Okay.
That subgroup is going to be on a special meeting day. It's not going to be part of
Correct,
our.
correct. Right, and it'll still come back to planning commission to actually craft any changes to the
Mhm.
ordinance. There's
Yeah.
those will make recommendations as to, you know, what those changes should be, but not the verbiage of the changes, and then Carlisle Wortman will have to work on that. Yeah, does that make sense? And then, we'll probably have some folks, to help work with, Carlisle Wortman on, you know, the solar, the EV parking, just to kind of, help do a little research, you know, talk.
We got
through it and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and we do have, we'll make it available to the new planning commissioners. There is a, if you go into, Catalyst, I didn't put that on the doggone. I'll add that before we distribute it, but Catalyst Communities has and Michigan Green Communities has a lot of planning and zoning, resources as well. And in Catalyst Communities, there's, and I'll send that along. It's a whole zoning ordinance that Michigan State University and, Sarah Mills at the University of Michigan, they went through, and it really goes through all the things you need to think about in, doing an ordinance for solar. So, that's just a really good, it's starting point, if you will. Yes, that one. Yeah, Bob and I went to a little seminar with Sarah.
With
Yeah.
respect to solar, can I ask you a
Yeah.
question? Since there's no ordinance, does that mean it's the Wild West, anything goes, do what you want, put it where you want to, put it in your front yard, put it in the side yard? Or does the ordinance say you can't do solar? What's the status quo right now for solar,
So for-
residential and or commercial?
For an individual applicant, it is considered an accessory structure, and it has to meet the ordinance standards for an accessory structure, which means it has to meet all setbacks. And that's really it. I mean, it has to meet setbacks, has to meet the height. It can go on your roof, no problem.
Okay,
We have not had a commercial application. We don't have a commercial ordinance. So.
but,
And we don't have it as a
lithium
permitted
might be
use.
solar, right? Or lithium,
Yeah, but that's part of a PUD,
right.
and that's.
So we approved it.
No,
But there are no commercial regulations currently for.
So when you talked about the accessory structure, that's for residential as well?
Yeah, if you wanted to stand, if you didn't want them on your roof and you wanted, you know,
Standalone.
standalone, it can only be, you know, the height of the district is probably 35 feet. So usually they're 6 or 10 feet tall, slanted, and then they have to meet all the setbacks for your yard. So they can't be they can't encumber, it can't be 5 feet from your side property line, right? They have to meet the required setback.
Yeah, and what's, it's sort of an omission, so it's not permitted, is solar as a principal use. So we couldn't do community solar or something like that in Scio Township.
But you could do principal use in your own home.
Well, it wouldn't be a
It'd be a
principal use,
principal.
it's an accessory use to your house. So there has to be another use on the property for you to have solar.
So quick question, did you and Doug have to approve the fire department's solar?
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Administrative.
I know we had to approve the salt barn for the road commission, so I was just.
Those
thinking
are
of
all,
Government.
so all of the ones we can go, all of those
Equal
would be,
restraints.
accessory uses would be an administrative approval through zoning compliance.
Got
They
it.
come here to get their zoning compliance so that they can pull their electrical and their building permits.
Can
Yeah.
subdivisions or actually developments, homeowners associations, there we go, that's what I was trying to say, can they overrule? Or can they make more restrictions than the ordinances do, and do
Isn't
we have
the
any
state
solar
writing that?
been blocked out of them?
Yeah, they can. And so there are, I don't know, I haven't looked at all of those, but there are situations where in Michigan, I don't know about Scio,
Okay.
where the homeowners associations have, if they don't allow solar, they don't.
Allow clotheslines, they don't allow chickens, they don't allow other environmental practices, so. One of the things that I'm gonna be looking for, and you guys can do what you want or not, is when a new subdivision goes in, we can say, are you going to, or a new PUD, are you going to have in your bylaws a ban on solars or like, backyard chickens? Now, maybe the lots are too small to allow it, I don't know. Yeah, but like clotheslines, a lot of them ban clotheslines, and so that's a question that I'm gonna have for developers. Like, hey, you wanna put in housing, what are you gonna do to promote environmental sustainability in the future by way of your bylaw? So, but that's, remind me to remind you, to remind me when that comes up again, Bob, please, and thank you. Yeah, gardening, can you have a garden in the front yard? Oh heavens,
I
no.
love your favorite example,
What?
not being able to put up a clothesline.
Clothesline, yeah, are you kidding? Travesty, can you imagine the chaos?
Oh,
You know, that underwear is.
Starting to look like a tent.
Please. I'm supposed to be a troublemaker, not you.
All right,
Yeah, we-
I like that, I like that.
okay, well, thank you for putting that together, and then we have to get, the proposals approved by the Board of Trustees, to kind of move ahead with this work, and, we're also going through a budgeting process right now, and so some of this will extend, into next year's budget as well. Okay, then election of officers. With a new planning commission. Oh, the other thing I want to add to this, Laura, is we do have to update our bylaws. It just, there's some dates in there and that type of thing. Yeah. From the ordinance review. All right, so election of officers. As a planning commission, we have a chair, vice chair, and secretary. And so we will entertain motions for, probably do chair, vice chair, and secretary in that order.
I would make a motion to nominate Jan Culberson as our chair.
I'm sorry, I don't wanna, if someone else wanted to support it.
I'll support it.
I was gonna support it as well, but Bob.
We're gonna fight to support.
Right, have a motion for Jan Culbertson to serve as chair for the planning commission. Any further discussion
Or nominations.
or nominations? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
By the way, I abstain. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much for that tuning support.
You abstained, did I hear?
Yeah, I mean.
I thought you
I could-
couldn't.
I
don't
wouldn't
know.
think that you need to, because we need your approval to take that.
Well,
position.
I accept that nomination, so we'll go backwards that way, but I feel weird myself.
Yeah, I had questioned that inability to abstain.
Oh, okay. But I accept the nomination. All right,
No, I mean, we were advised of that
Yeah.
months ago.
okay, vice chair. Yeah, and I would like to nominate Bob to continue being vice chair, steps in when I can't make it, and unofficial is the unofficial timer as well.
I would support that.
Right. Are there any other nominations? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of Bob Hyde being vice chair of planning commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'll follow your lead, I'll accept that.
Okay. All right, and then I'd like to nominate Bob Walsh to be secretary. He served as secretary for the ZBA and has it down.
So does the chair make motions? I don't
Oh,
think that's
I don't think so.
appropriate
Oh, okay. Oh,
under the rules.
Under our
that could
bylaws.
be.
No, under the
Robert's rules.
Robert's rules. Chair doesn't make motions.
We operate under Robert's rules.
That's why there's the phrase, the chair would accept a motion.
Well, yes, the chair
Or
will accept
entertain a
a
motion.
nomination of Bob Walsh as secretary
Well, I'm out then. Given
Yeah.
that, do we need someone else to make the motion?
for,
I'll make the motion to have
Okay,
Bob
thank you.
Walsh as secretary.
Well, just, we need to
You need
go
to
back
go
for
back and
Bob
fix-
Hyde because the
okay,
chair made the motion for the vice chair.
thank you for the correction.
Who's gonna motion it?
I'll motion it.
Okay. So,
And Mr. Reiser, you'll second that still.
Yes.
okay, then we are,
All in favor?
favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
I wasn't gonna-
Bob Hyde. Then I'll, okay, did we already do a nomination?
I'll nominate Bob Walsh to be secretary.
Thank you.
Support by Riser.
Support by Riser. Any other nominations? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
All right, so may I ask the question?
Yes.
Are we operating under Robert's rules?
I was wondering about that.
I don't believe it.
You know, I always want
You try to have some modem of, following Robert's rules, otherwise we wouldn't make motions, we wouldn't, you know,
You
yeah.
know, I
We
don't
wouldn't
believe
second, we
we have that
wouldn't,
in our bylaws.
That's a check, okay.
I don't know what the bylaws say.
Yeah, it's in there, but we will, that might be something to add, you know, just, it helps run an efficient meeting. All right, approval of the dates, meeting dates for 2024. Most of our meetings are on the second or the fourth Mondays, but there are a few that are holidays and there's a stretch in there where, we have, elections and they use this as, early voting time. So there were a couple that we tried to find. You don't want to go, you know, over a month without a meeting, a scheduled meeting, just that really delays, process and so forth. So, we came up with they're predominantly on the second and the fourth, and then there are a few, odd dates, but those would be on, this calendar would be then, put on the website, and there are also then, with the calendar meeting days, that's also the, application deadlines are based on those calendar days.
So I just point out that the officer terms are 1 year, not 3 years. Because
We have to, every year, we
Yeah, we
have
have not
to
been doing
change the
that.
dates. We have to change the dates of the election too, because in the bylaws, it says June, but it makes sense to do it after the first meeting after the appointment, the new appointments.
the bylaws say the first meeting in July.
Or July, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, which I think originally that's when the terms were, so we just have to update that. Does it make sense to do it the first meeting of with the new appointments?
Yeah, I don't think the bylaws reference follow Robert's rules, but.
Okay.
So can I ask you a question about this calendar list?
Yes.
Certain things are asterisked. And what's the asterisk on the
Are
list?
those the off-cycle dates? From what it looks like February 5th is an asterisk date, because the meetings are only a week apart, but it had to be moved up into the early voting for the election.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they're little, yeah, they're not the typical.
Not the normal every 2 weeks cycle.
Same thing in the fall with the
It's a
president.
little bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so.
Do we get Indigenous date right this coming?
Yeah, that November span is.
Yeah,
October,
are you
November.
accounting for Juneteenth?
GMT?
All right.
Okay, So I'll entertain a motion for approval of our calendars posted.
I would move adoption of our meeting schedule for 2024 as published and reviewed by all of us tonight.
Is there
Support.
support by Commissioner Hyde? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Okay, we're to reports, and as we're going through the reports, if we should probably confirm our liaisons or our representatives for those different committees as well. I've got to start up my. So, while we're doing while we're getting there, would you promote Stacy, the panelist? And and I didn't, when we were going through the introductions, I didn't have Stacy introduce herself. So maybe Stacy, you could introduce yourself and then just if you have a report.
She's joined the webinar, so she probably didn't hear anything you say because. So.
Oh, that's
When you
right.
joined a panelist, so.
Okay,
Why
when
don't
she
you-
comes
why don't
in.
you Tell her now. Here she goes.
Hi, Stacy. I apologize because I didn't have you introduce yourself when we were going around the table here. So please take that opportunity now and then go ahead and we'll do your report first.
All right. I'm Stacy Monty with OHM, the engineering consultant. We've been involved in Scio since the late 90s. I've been involved in Scio since I started with OHM about 6 years ago. And I'm happy to answer any engineering questions you guys have throughout the time you're getting adjusted, and excited to work with you all moving forward. We actually do not have anything to update on tonight. Laura kind of touched on the Firestone review coming up, and that's really the only thing that's new for you guys. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
of course.
Yep. And would you like to, Carlisle Wortman's report?
Well, I've already reported.
Reported
everything I
mostly.
can, but just so you all know, I'm available to you via email or phone, any questions you have. If I can't answer it, I can find an answer. But I've been working in Scio a long time and I work in a lot of other communities too, so. And I work with a company that has a wealth of planning knowledge and we're all very supportive of each other. So if there is anything I don't know, I can find a resource.
So I don't have your email or number.
We can take that.
Okay. And let's put it back in. All right, my report, I'm working with Laura, and we just had a kickoff for the budgeting process. And what we'll be doing is, continuing to look at, these are kind of special projects. And so we need to make sure that those get into the budget, as well as the Environmental Sustainability Task Force, any of their work. For instance, they had the sustainability fair, and they intend to do it again. It would be nice to maybe get some sponsorships and a little bit of funding for that, to continue that. And I think that's about it. We're also looking at possibly some going after some, perhaps some grant funding and for some of the sustainability work. Let's see, then Commissioner Reiser emailed everyone the Board of Trustees report.
And on that report is my mobile number, which you are free to call at 11 o'clock any day and as early as 7 in the morning. So call me if you have questions about it. And then I will report tomorrow. I'll do a report about tonight's proceedings to the board with what we did in the introduction of the people, and although they've seen your resumes recently.
We approved it.
Yeah. Zoning Board of Appeals,
Is now May.
that will now be Bob Hyde. Yes, we'll change that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna do that. I'm sorry.
That's all
I'm
right.
gonna do that. I know I'm gonna do that. Okay.
There
Commissioner,
was,
yes.
there was no November ZBA meeting. We do have one for the 21st for an expansion of a non-conforming accessory structure. Don't have any more details than that. I will be the planning commission liaison now to the ZBA. Trustee Noel will be taking the open permanent spot so that we have 5 permanent members on the ZBA. I believe that appointment was done at the last Board of Trustees meeting.
And now the DDA is going to be, Commissioner, Gable.
Nice.
We had a special meeting on the 4th, I think what day that was, where we started to discuss what we need to do to hire a consultant to potentially extend the DDA, as well as, we discussed, maintenance of Jackson Road, the subsidiary feeder roads like Betty Drive, Enterprise Drive, Dino Drive, amongst others. As well as the fact that we're committed to spending the pathway, the portion of the pathway village that we capture in the DDA district on pathways. There's a few other discussions that were part of that meeting.
Right. And the road advisory committee, are you
I
gonna,
am not okay, there is no planning commission representative required for the road advisory committee. That's what the statement was from Jillian, and she's right in the bylaws, they don't require it. So there doesn't need to be one assigned from the planning commission, apparently. Now, it's up to the board.
I'll let you.
It didn't even get discussed
Uh-huh.
thoroughly in the board of trustees last meeting.
It was pulled until tomorrow night.
Right, okay, so it will be discussed tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll know more then.
Okay, so we're waiting to see if there will be a liaison or a person
Or
from.
at large from the public.
Okay. All right.
What is this for? They would be a liaison to the,
Road advisory.
Road commission advisory
Yeah.
from us to them, or?
from us to them.
Yes, go ahead.
Question. DDA, like downtown.
Town Development.
Development Authority.
Yep, and there is a DDA map, that is,
Alright.
yeah, it's primarily the Jackson Road.
There's,
Yeah.
there's offset like up to township, basically township hall, opposite the houses along Z Road are in it, the 300 North C building, that building that was with large grass and unkept until earlier this year is in it. So yeah, there's roads off of Jackson Road, but primarily Jackson. Right.
Yeah, and the DDA was primarily created to,
To fund bond, we could bond in order to help the road can, ultimately we own, in air quotes, because we don't actually own it, the road commission does, but on a balance sheet that the DDA maintains, we own Jackson Road, and from the date in 1988, 89 to now, all the value of that property has gone up. We capture half of that tax increase, and those monies can be spent in the DDA district to do things like maintenance. Well, maintenance is a contested topic, but we have done bus shelters, we have done, we have put in water and sewer infrastructure. There's a lot of projects we have done. We have paved some roads. So hopefully some more things soon to come.
Hopefully.
So I found it helpful to have a couple maps with me generally. One is like a zoning map where things go. Generally, I have these with me. The other is the DDA map, which is in yellow. Then there's the sewer map. And then there's the J-Rod, the Jackson map. So you're like, and they're mostly overlapping with respect to sewer, DDA, and J-Rod, but they're not entirely overlapping. And sometimes somebody will want to put something in and, oh, that's a great area, it's in the DDA, or that's a great area, but you don't have a toilet flush. You know, you're gonna have to do a septic. So you'll come to have that in the back of your head. You'll get to know where sewer is, where DDA is, where J-Rod is, where water is. Anyway.
Yeah.
We'll help you along.
Land preservation.
There's going to be a presentation tomorrow by Will Weber and Barry Lonick. They're both gonna present at the BOT tomorrow. So I can report back, but I would ask you to tune in or look at, it'll probably, if there's it wasn't in the packet when I last looked at the packet, but to the extent that there's PowerPoint and it becomes part of the packet. So I'll report back on the goings on of that. Because we're talking about what land should we buy and how much should we pay for it? That's not public discussion, because if we're thinking of buying 40 acres of the Thompson farm at $16,000 an acre, then developer X, Y, or Z says, you know, we'll pay up to $18,000 for the Thompson farm and we'll put in a private sewer system and this and that. So some of what we do isn't out there, because then we tip our hat as to what we're looking at, how much we're willing to pay for it, and that it's on the market for your next subdivision. So that's the rub sometimes in how that body operates. And they're allowed to, under Open Meetings Act exceptions, talk in, closed session, when they're talking about the acquisition of property before an agreement on that has been had. So there's not a lot of reporting other than stay tuned. We're working on things are in the works, but that's dissatisfying.
Question.
Yeah, question. The Land Preservation Committee works as an advisory to.
Oh, yeah, we don't buy a darn thing. The board buys things.
Clarifying.
Yeah.
PPP?
Chris Chang, right? That was Chris Chang's gig. So we got a meeting coming up next week about the curl event, the Van Curler. So, part of the PPP is, we have, are you on it?
No, spell it out.
P, comma, P, comma, P.
Actually, there's no commas.
Park preserves and pathways.
Just wanted to see.
Yeah. Parks, preserves, and pathways. And there's a special millage for that. And they kind of work a little bit with the LPC, because the LPC, they kind of sometimes deal with the land that the LPC has acquired and preserved. So the LPC is trying to buy parcels that are kind of next to each other or connected to each other. And poor Ann and the PPP, they get the job of like, well, how do we connect these? How do we get the pathways from one park to another park or preserve? How do we get people there? How do we get pathways on it? How do we get it, put trails there? How do we identify our plants? Yeah, that type of thing. Like the Van Curler, and sometimes we run into an issue. For instance, we have this great parcel, but it's on a pretty fast road and it's kind of narrow. And if you're gonna have an entrance into it so that people can use it, well, then the road commission says you gotta take down all these trees if you wanna have a safe entrance and exit or egress, so how do you preserve the trees that you bought when the road commission wants you to tear them down so that people can get access to them? Those are some of the, I wouldn't say conflicts, but some of the issues that arise. Or we bought a parcel here, but boy, there's not a path there. Or how do you put a trailhead off of? So they're dealing with trailheads and parking lots and dealing with access, getting, connectivity, the park road. How are we gonna get people from Trailwoods to the new Slim Chickens that we approved, without driving a car? Can we get them there safely on a bike? Can we get them there safely on walking? So.
Okay, great. Huron River Watershed Council.
We haven't had a meeting. The next meeting will be January 18th.
Environmental Sustainability Task Force. We didn't have another meeting. We're gonna start again in January and kind of work through primarily the sustainability fair, and the main role is sort of the community engagement, role of that task force, and developing resources. The Fire Service Guidance Committee they're not meeting anymore, are they? So we could take that off.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, the W2 rag.
I don't blame you one bit. So, this is kind of, at our last meeting, the head of the Dexter schools came. And WAVE has been in discussion with both Chelsea schools as well as Dexter's. So specifically, the Scio Farms is not in the Dexter schools district. Yeah,
It's in Ann Arbor.
Is Ann Arbor?
I guess so. But they want, I guess kids want to go to the Dexter school, so that's a schools of choice where you can do, right? And so they're working with us, WAVE, to see if we can, so they can steer, maybe we could provide service and do some
Transportation?
school transportation, yeah. Chelsea schools had also approached WAVE about that too. And they were looking at some Manchester students want to do schools of choice and come to the Chelsea schools. Well, they can't send school buses out of district. So that's the issue. So that's all in the mix. It's not happened yet.
But WAVE is AATA?
No,
What's WAVE?
WAVE is WAVE.
No.
Area Value Express.
All right, appreciate the spelling lesson, but that's not part of AAATA.
No,
It's a regional,
it's Western Washtenaw County Value Express. It's for the western part of the county. So Scio Township West,
But it's-
north and south.
municipal transportation?
Pardon me?
Municipal, municipal transportation?
I don't know what that means,
Is it
but,
a bus service?
It is
Yes.
a bus
Oh,
service.
okay.
but we cover all the townships.
Okay.
And in terms of municipal, the only municipalities that are involved are City of Chelsea and City of Dexter.
Got it,
And all the other ones are villages, Manchester Village,
Yeah.
Manchester Township, Stockbridge. We're looking at providing some service to Grass Lake right now. It's all in the talking planning stage. One of the interesting pieces, is that the downtown community in Chelsea are interested in having bus service after 6 o'clock, because they got and they're willing to, put up the money for it. So they want people to have a good time, but they don't want people to drink so much that they're having an overly good time and get into an accident. So that's promising. There's a new, like a park and ride service to bring some people in from Jackson County into Chelsea to the hospital. We would have a transfer spot in Grass Lake, and WAVE would be, sort of like a community shuttle for that. That's not settled yet, but we've been approached about that. And some of the partners would be the Chelsea Retirement Center, Silver Maples, St. Joe, St. Louis Center. They have a lot of people who don't know. We have St. Louis Center, who've never been there, but it's like in the middle of nowhere, so. So anyway, there might be some new, some new ridership, so. So one of the things is these school districts are hurting because they can't hire drivers. And the biggest, from what I can gather, is the biggest problem is that a lot of the jobs are part-time. And people want full-time. Because they pay well, they get benefits, so like the Dexter guy was saying that they try to, and they don't have any jobs in the summer, so they try to put them with other jobs, but some people don't want to do other jobs, whether it be grounds work or janitorial services or whatever. Try to retain folks, but all these school districts are having a hard time with recruiting and retention.
All right. Well, Andrea, we'll let you get your feet wet a little bit more, and before we say, here, you can take care of this other committee
I
too.
want to catch up on one. What is LPC?
Land Preservation Committee, and they have a map. There's a millage that the voters of Scio Township passed to acquire properties, to preserve properties, and there are different ways to do that. They can buy it outright, they can buy a conservation easement, they can buy it and sell it to another farmer so that it stays a farm forever. And there's a map that's ever growing, and this is it right here. Again, if you want that, I'll leave it with you, you can have it. But, you know, they come to be known by the names of generally who owned the property or the farmer owned it or things like that. Some are conservation easements, some are fee simple absolute, i.e. we own it. And you know, we're trying to consider like, see how they're kind of close together. When they're close together like that, that presents opportunities for pathways across town. Okay, so take that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing with the PPP, Anna and I are working on, and actually Jackie Courteau is helping, with the tree policy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
yeah, and so part of that is also looking at, the tree list that Scio has, so we'll kind of kick, you know.
In our ordinance?
In our
Chapter
ordinance,
36?
In chapter 36,
Right.
so we're kind of trying to update that for current, tree issues like oak wilt and, trees that have been declared now invasive, et cetera. So do a good job.
Oak wilt, does Scio have a specialist that can
No, but-
examine for oak wilt?
Nope, and it is in the township.
It is.
It is in the township.
So are all of these committees involvements, are all those up for reassignment to each of us?
I think if anybody, we're gonna cross off the fire services guidance, so John, you do PPP and LPC just from trustees or?
Yes.
Okay, so John could do that, but it would make more sense, that it might.
I wouldn't, my feelings wouldn't be hurt if somebody else said, oh, I want to do that.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, I
And
didn't
we'll-
know if somebody wanted to do the Western Washington Regional Advisory Group.
I mean, I would think you're well suited to that because of your wave connection and also the interest in housing, which was sort of the original
Yeah.
piece of that. I don't know. But yeah,
But
if anyone doesn't want to continue, you're stuck.
I'm stuck.
So,
Laura.
yeah. And Bob, you could always do ESTF if you wanted to. So some of us are on a couple of different ones.
Is there a list of all these committees somewhere?
Probably on your
Page
agenda.
10 of the, oh, no.
Okay.
And then under democracy, on at the top, one of the right headings is
Yes.
democracy, and then, go under
On
that.
the township
they're listed
website.
alphabetically. And their agendas, their minutes, sometimes their videos, sometimes their charter, sometimes an ordinance that talks about it.
And they're working on making it more apparent when to apply, how to apply, when openings come up, all of these things. TBD coming in January.
Well, you said that, but that's most of the committees. It doesn't have the Western Washington,
The W2.
the W2 rack. It doesn't have the Huron River Water Council. So the real list is the one in the packet.
Right, then you can Google the others that aren't there.
Right.
And what it is with the Huron River Watershed Council, we're a part of the Mid-Huron group or something like that officially.
Yeah, the middle,
Middle Huron, that's right, Middle Huron.
which got redefined,
Oh,
for this year.
okay, all right. So I think that, that's it. We're, to our second public comment. So we have no one in Township Hall, so, we'll open up public comments for folks online.
Rob Pattinson has raised his hand. Oh, he has permission to talk already. Go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Visiting the site, that was the second to last slide, Laura, on your presentation. One thing that always bothered me on the ZBA especially was when they would talk about, yeah, I drove by the site, or I went and looked at it, or such and such, and they never talked to the homeowners. And I think what I heard was that you're recommending that planning commissioners and zoning board of appeal members can't talk to homeowners because they can't allow themselves to be influenced by outside sources. Is that true?
Yeah, there is a thing called ex parte communication, and you can look in I think it's in the Zoning Enabling Act. But yeah, we have to be very careful about who we talk to about our process. And if there's a perception that they're influencing us in some of our decisions.
That makes sense. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
You had a question, Bob?
Well, no, I had an additional comment in addition to what Laura answered. And that would be if we find ourselves in that position where we have been addressed by a neighbor, say, of the property, and we've been given guidance. We shouldn't give guidance, but if we're given guidance in that situation, we have been instructed to write it up and present it to the commission, the rest of the commissioners, so that it is part of the public discussion.
You have to write, I didn't know we had to write it up. Well, it can be in an email.
It could be, I guess you could do it verbally, but when I found myself in that position, I wrote it up in the minutes.
Yeah, I guess it depends how extensive it is.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it should be a part of the public transparency that
Yep.
discussion.
Everybody should hear it, not just one person.
Yep.
Thank you for that explanation. That really helps a lot and clears up a lot of fuzziness. And then David Spicer was there tonight, and that raises the question, who does someone who is thinking about doing something with their property, let's just use Dave Spicer as an example because he was there tonight. He's thinking about building something or selling his property, and in order to do that, it needs to be rezoned in order to do what he's planning. Where does someone go first to talk about that sort of thing? And is there a process that's in place that helps residents change the zoning of their properties?
Yes, Rob. So this is Laura Krebs. Yes, so a resident would contact the township. They most likely, if they say they have a zoning or planning question, they would get me. They can either come in for an appointment, they can call me on the phone, we can have a Zoom call. Typically, if it's more extensive, they come in or we set an appointment to talk about that. So yes, that's the first step. And from there, if it's a rezoning, I would help walk them through that process, the application process. If it's more development oriented, like a site plan, then we have to get OHM, the fire department, utilities, a planning commission member, and we have what we call a pre-application meeting after my initial contact with them to begin that process.
Brilliant. Okay. And I think what I just heard is that a resident doesn't have to hire an outside advocate to approach the township. They can do this themselves. They can deal with you as the planner, and that you can help guide them through the process. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay. Ryan, you brought up the PUD public benefit, and I would like to add public benefit just in general. I've had several comments about this in the past. And then Kim, you were talking about the fact that the Planning Commission is waiting for the Board of Trustees to come back with a policy. I would submit that a working session between the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, and the DDA on this particular subject would be very, very beneficial, like it was for the J-Rod, because a lot of you are going to have a lot more insight on public benefit than the Board of Trustees, and getting that policy in place, in my opinion, is an extremely high priority. We just had the strategic planning meeting on Saturday, December 2nd, and that was brought up. I hope that was given a #1 priority during that meeting. And I hope that the Planning Commission puts a very high priority on developing that policy for Scio Township, so that residents know what it is, and so that Developers know what it is, so it's clear, fair, and transparent, and they know what they're getting into. And then John Reiser, I will post the recording of this meeting right after the meeting. My connection is so slow, it'll take at least an hour, but tomorrow morning it will be available to you to see the initial introductions, so you can put that into your report. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Rob.
Cheers. Take care again.
Thank you. All right, other,
No one else has their hand raised.
great. Then our last item of business is approval of the minutes of 11/13/2023. And I just want to say that if you didn't attend the meeting, it doesn't mean you can't approve the minutes, but we do have a quorum here of, or a majority of people who
I did intend to abstain because I was not here.
you were not there.
Comfortable
Okay, so then we
with
will
minutes.
need, you know, someone who wasn't there to,
Oh, I watched the meeting. I wasn't officially as an commission.
you were online as well, great,
Yes.
okay. Then, any, additions or corrections to the minutes?
I would move to approve the minutes.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Hyde.
Support by Reiser.
Support by Commissioner Reiser. Any further, discussion? All right, just knowing, let's do a roll call vote, just so, because that's probably the easiest way to,
I don't know who abstained.
sorry.
Find the list.
Make it hard on his first day.
Yeah, right. And usually I tend to ask for, my vote last,
Okay.
just,
She can see which way the wind blows.
It is in the bylaw.
yeah.
Commissioner Yeaple,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Abstain.
Commissioner Rothman, Commissioner Walsh, yes. Commissioner Hyde,
Yeah.
Commissioner Reiser,
Yes.
Chair Colvin.
Yes. Right, the minutes are approved. Does anyone else have any other business? Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Moore, supported by Yeaple, for adjournment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Aye, any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:09.
Sorry.